first to see how many minutes I had, but it shouldn't have been that far off. But the timing for me to get there, there's just a little bit. But I already called to follow up. Today we have the judges out. They're giving orders because they want to. I think there's a judge who's trying to look at people's independent contracts who wants to be in on the contract. It might be the problem with Mexico all the time. In the wrong places. In the United States, there's a judge who's Mexican who wants to be in on people's family agreements. So I guess they want to receive pay, but I don't think that that's a legal jurisdiction. Judges don't have any right to deprive people's human rights or to make a benefit off of people's human rights. So now we have to figure out what's going to happen because the Mexican judges, we have U.S. American judges that are doing this too. So it might be an international movement, or it might be something that they understand. But according to law, we only understand, people from financial institutions making deals. Like if you're set up, where you're able to, help people to with their legal contracts for financial gain. Like you have to have a license to do that. The judge already there's other people that already got paid from the agreement. So they got paid from the agreement when they decided to send out the money. I guess if you call a financial aid person, they have access to your account. Every time you make a payment, they're supposed to get paid. And so I thought that's what Mexico was doing, making it so they're always receiving some financial fee or something. But now the judges want a fee. But how can you want a fee if another judge already made an agreement and that judge might have already taken a restitution somewhere just for giving the order? I don't know if there's a fee. There might be a hidden fee or something, but they might have already taken it. But it's not really to cancel. I think it was the fee, isn't a percentage, like a huge percentage of a contract, right? So the courts already took a filing fee. They already took a fee that way. And so I don't really know if the United States federal government understands that these people are very serious. Like the jurisdictions and the crimes that these people are really trying to commit are very serious crimes, because they already had other people who already might have benefited from some of these contracts, because there's a legal jurisdiction for them to be able to. But you can't, change creditors. So the Court of Justice sounds like he doesn't really know our securities laws that well. And so he or she's gonna they're all gonna have to be challenged, because you're not allowed to to change creditors. Like if one person's name was the credit that the United States of America knows that they gave the credit to, we don't go and say, okay, well, we gave you a Section 8 voucher in your name, but we're gonna change it now and give it to a Section 8 voucher to another person. Okay, and especially if they're immigrants. So that's obvious right there that they know that there's a crime that's committed, because you're trying to tell someone that you're committing, that you're changing a jurisdiction, which is like saying you're changing the creditors, okay, to mess up somebody else's credit, okay? But You understand that, though. You know that, and you know that you know that. We know that you know that, because you're changing the creditors where it still just doesn't make any sense. And yes, we know that foreign women want to say that they're with an American man. We get it. We know that they want to have citizenship's rights, but that's not what the man said. Okay, so once you already have the creditor there, and if the American man says, well, I want to marry an American woman and not an immigrant woman, you have to leave it that way, because he already made a choice and a decision. Now, if he thinks that the person he chose is, too old or too ugly, whatever, I mean, there's a lot of discrimination in the United States. It's not legal, okay? And there's a lot of young people with older people, okay? And it's because they're more responsible, okay? But if you're saying, well, I wanted to, I wanted to have two young people there so that way I could control the environment. Just looking at how you're being, you don't need to control the environment. Okay, the State's Department, no court officer. Yes, there's court officers there, but that man has a lot of bruises. Okay, he has a lot of injuries. That family has a lot of injuries. Okay, and you're just gonna tell us that it's some type of gentrification, or it's something that you're trying to do to make it so English people have to live single and all this and that. No, we're Christian. Okay, you're not allowed to interrupt other people's ceremony. And in the state of Texas, you can only have one contract at a time. So I don't know why all these people are still working toward, fighting over somebody's income. Okay, that's somebody that has to wake up every single day. Income is not considered to be an asset in the United States of America, okay? So even if the judge has their sons and daughters and they wanted them to get married, from an American citizen's human rights, okay? You cannot want to use somebody else's human rights with your son or daughter. That is not a legal right, okay? Your son and daughter already said that they might be too young for the jurisdiction, okay? Because it is too much money for them to have to deal with their army, with their friends, okay? And because it looks like it's a jurisdiction that has to be taken, okay? It has to be taken. It has to be taken in front of Congress. It has to be taken in front of our envoys. It has to be taken, in front of other constitutional American citizens, in front of the Constitution judges, attorneys. It has to be taken. I mean, really, someone needs to bar that judge, okay? The judges don't know that they can be barred. What is the sale today for all these people lining up? Okay, they might be. Actually, I don't know. The judge might be able to be barred. I think some judges were being prosecuted. Okay, so that might have been why some judges have been prosecuted online, in the news. Okay, because they're trying to give themselves a jurisdiction, over the citizens' constitutional human rights, civil rights. Why does a man want to wake up every single day and have to look at somebody that he didn't agree to? His fellow man brothers didn't tell him that that's our care provider. Okay? They didn't tell him that that's the one that we agreed to take care of, but that's the one who takes care of us. Okay? Why would you just if you don't want him to play sports anymore, then that's all you have to say. If you don't want him to have to be on your fields anymore, he doesn't have to be. Why? Because he doesn't have to want to be under your civil authority either. Because that's not who his fellow manhood said that was a trustworthy person. Okay? So the Mexicans and people in general have to understand and learn to say, no, sorry, we can't help you. Or you have to know when it's not a legal right. You have to know when to just let go. And you have to know when to let go. And you move on. Give yourself. Okay, you need to know how to give yourself the, what do you call that? You need to give yourself an adjustment. Okay, you need to give yourself a change of order in mind. Let's see. Hi, is Elizabeth ready? Hi, I'm here for pickup for Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Excuse me, sir. Can I have a plastic bag so I can put both of you in? Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Get some napkins for my car just in case spills, okay? But yeah, people need to know how to give themselves. Why? Because it was your idea. Okay, if you want to suffer, if somebody needs to suffer, you need to suffer. You don't tell someone who's getting up every single day working hard, okay, that you want to take away their human rights. You want to take away their rights to happiness, okay? You want to tell them that it's wrong for them to be with an American. Now you want to change their jurisdiction to tell them, okay, that they have to be with an immigrant. When he said he didn't want to be with an immigrant, he said that he wants to be with an American Christian person, okay? He doesn't want to keep thinking that every time he wakes up he has to supply for more than one or two people. And maybe that was what you all were thinking, but guess what? He doesn't want to do that, okay? Because maybe that's not the way his mother really raised him, okay? I think his black mother, okay, raised him. She might have baptized him, okay, or Christian. Oh no, maybe that wasn't the right one. That probably wasn't. That was probably his brother, okay. But whatever it is, maybe he wants to confess and say he believes in Jesus Christ, okay. The man is sitting here wearing a cross on his forehead, saying he believes in Jesus Christ. You want him to say, oh no, you're fake, you're forgery. You call me up every day for crack. You call me every day for heroin or whatever, okay? And so you think that because he calls that person every single day for his drugs, that's his entity. No, he probably had a gun put to his head, okay? So the Mexicans need to tell a little bit more, okay? And then you say, well, I put a gun to your head so I can have drugs because I was trying to prosecute you. Oops, I forgot it's not my water. Okay, that was humanly cruel. Okay, to put a gun to someone's head to make them believe in you or to make them think that, saying you are the United States of America's entity, to make them get high off of drugs. That is very, very sad. Now you go to them every single day saying, I own your property, I own this, I own that. And guess who did that? Those black Mexicans. Okay, and there was no real defense to stop them. And you can see it now. There's still no real defense to stop them. Why? Because that was the one who said that they were probably the judge who was giving the jurisdiction for there to be extra money. Okay, they can't say, oh, well, it's because we want to think that African people are our slaves. No, you don't want to think that African people are your slaves. You thought it was because you were going to agree to commit a crime and you don't know the security laws. Okay, you don't know the securities laws. But the person that he's partners with does. Okay, so no matter what seat you sit in, the person that he's partners with knows the security laws, knows if it was right or fair. Why? Because there's not supposed to be any restitution for someone to be prosecuted illegally. Okay, we have a such thing as Good Samaritan laws. Okay? And we also have laws where people can actually help each other in time of emergency. But we don't force people to get help. Okay, by raping and by putting a gun to their head. By making them feel, comfortable with us now. By selling drugs. Forcing them to do drugs. And then the Mexicans will tell them, no, but I did this to you so I can have money. You force someone into drugs so you can have money? That was humanly cruel. Okay? That wasn't his brother now. Told him to trust. It wasn't. That was humanly cruel. What you did to that sports player. Somebody's probably thinking like, wow, why would we wake up and try to get drafted today? Just for someone to tell us, put a gun to our heads, and to tell us that, me wanting all my human and civil rights as a man, is wrong, and that I should have never have been with an American citizen in the first place. That wasn't a promise to somebody's self. That's not a civil right. So I hope that these judges out here who are trying to disperse shares, I hope they understand that we have to make sure that we're doing what the athlete says, what the person says that they want to do too. Okay? Because that's the sports agent's right. That's the sports agent's law. Expectations from the sports agent. Expectations from the sports agent isn't for the agent in China to tell people what to do. Your responsibility is to do what the athlete says for you to do. Okay, so if he said that he wanted to make sure that he has all his things and that this is the person he chose, that's what you're supposed to leave it as. You're not supposed to have like 3 and 4 immigrants now all trying to help themselves with our federation money and some immigration court judges or foreign American judges, who do understand, the difference, okay, between the domestic and the foreign affairs. We greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much. We're very, very happy that you do know. The only problem with it is that sometimes it's a hard act to follow if you decide to involve yourself. Okay? You're not allowed to really involve yourself. You're not really allowed to, tell someone that you want them to work for you all the time. And every time you're always going to have money coming out. No, that's not the right way. Okay, you have to make sure that you're doing what it is that the actor says. Okay, the actor, performer, because the performer has to get up every single day and perform its duties. Okay, and if the law says that we don't give Mexican people, we don't give Asian Orientals, rights, human rights, or we haven't voted on them yet, okay, or we haven't changed our immigration laws, okay, to see them as an American citizen. Okay, people have to pay to show their citizenship rights here in this country. People have to study hard, study every single night. You're like, hey, what are you doing? I have to read. Okay, I have to get ready to take an exam. okay? Just so that they can be able to have those citizenships rights. And now it's like somebody's just coming from across the border, cutting her hair, saying she plays basketball, and now all of a sudden she gets to, you know, claim American rights. Okay, claim the same rights as an American citizen. Okay, or as one of those natural citizens. Okay, naturalized citizens. Okay, that's wrong. All right, you have to read a lot. You can't just say that you're an American citizen because you want to be an American citizen. Just because you're Mexican and you're allowed to have a dual citizenship, you still got to go through the same process. You still have to go through the same process. You can't think that you're like, you know, the prize winner. No, you can't think that you're the prize winner just because you got to meet somebody. That's not a civil right. And where the attorneys at in the environment, they should have told you. The judge should have known that even if you do bring this refugee across the borderline and put them in your name, they still don't have the same civil liberties as any other American citizen. They don't have the same equivalation. You can't even get the same credit account. I mean, really. Okay? The American citizen isn't allowed to take money from the Mexican bank. So if we're not allowed to take money from the Mexican bank, okay, because it's not for Mexico's purpose, because that's their security laws, okay, then you're not allowed to, you know, like when you go buy a house, you buy a car, you can't, American citizens can't go and buy a house and a car, you know, with a Mexican bank. Or really any foreign bank. We'll be lucky if the Mexicans allow us to buy their house. Because they don't even know, like some of them don't even accept that that's a form of payment. Okay? So I don't want to double pay. Don't, you know, that's what the Chinese do. They like to make people double pay. Or sometimes they like to feed the parent and not the child. Okay? And we thank you for, you know, I like that they have empathy. I like that they have a sense of compassion, but it's not going to stop them. They're going to say, I'm still going to take the little girl's cookie if I want to. Because that's what the teacher taught them. Okay? But you only teach them that if you think that that's your enemy. Okay? So the teacher is going to teach her to keep doing what she's doing until death. Because that's her enemy. But once you understand that that's not your enemy, that might be your fellow man, that might be your ally, okay? But we're really not your ally, okay? It's written in the Mexican reform laws, okay, that they have an ally, which is the United States, or maybe some parts of America. We're really not your ally. I think it's really some parts of America. It's not really United States of America. It's not the United States. The United States of America isn't your ally. It might be more like, you know, Central or South America. Because I think in South America, like Venezuela, for instance, there might be a lot of Mexicans and Haitians there. Okay? So, you know, that would be Mexico's ally. That means that people have the right in those places to communicate and call Mexico. And like the United States, we have to have our laws reformed. I looked it up again today. The telecommunication law, they're trying to give it more detail so people understand. Now listen to me. If somebody don't want you to do something, then they just don't want you to do something. But what they have to understand is that when your country tells someone to don't communicate with you, that means for you not to communicate with them. Because how can you communicate? How can a person not communicate with you if you're calling them, asking them a question? Okay, it's not for you to say, oh, well, we're pretending with you again. We don't need you to pretend to do anything for us. You're the one who keeps trying to do something to us. You've been free since 1959 or something, or 1950 somewhere, okay? You have to enjoy your independence. You got to understand that. You don't need to be dependent. Why? Because it doesn't matter. We don't have any laws for Mexico to care. Okay? When you tell us that you don't care about the law, what I told them to tell you is we want to take out the whole bank account. Let's see how you feel to have to pay back the whole treaty. Can you pay back all of that money? Okay, people died in this country for that treaty. Okay, it doesn't matter. As soon as you decide that you don't like the treaty, what you're really saying is that you're still at war. Okay, you're still at war. You're still at war against America, against the United States of America. Okay, you're still at war against Texas. Okay, you don't need to still be at war against Texas because you don't need to have a civil right here because you don't agree with our laws. Okay, if you agreed with our laws, you wouldn't be trying to make yourself first when our law says this is a federal state. This is a federal state, a federal income tax state. What that means is that all of the federal rights have to be reserved. So even if the black foreign judge says, hey, look, I want to deprive somebody's human rights, that's not going to go into a case study. Well, it wasn't supposed to be like that. We were just helping those people for a short time and then we were leaving. Okay, but maybe that wasn't, maybe that might not be a right. That might not be a right either. Because you cannot tell a group of men who are spending money on helping families, okay, that they have limits to what they can do with their money, with their donations. Okay, you can't tell them that they were donating or giving something away, okay, and tell them that meant that they had like a $10,000 loss. Okay, you might think that that's not a lot of money, but those men go out every single night and make sure that they are looking for whomever has the money to give them back whatever they lost. Now, thankfully they got the money back already, okay, from the agreement. Okay, so that was part of the partnership agreement, because if you're able to rub my back and help me, then I'm able to rub and scratch your back, and whatever the debt was, it was actually able to pay off. It's just that there's money that's left over from the agreement. Okay, so now it turns where they have to pay back again, but they have to pay back, as
the customer requested you leave the order at their door. Additional instructions are provided in the Dasher app.
Okay, so then which means now is that under the new agreement, that becomes that person's money. Right, exactly. See, somebody probably thinks that a person owed a debt to themselves. No, it's a partnership. We're in a partnership. Okay, and that's okay that we're in a partnership. Why? Because it was a partnership, an agreement that was made. Okay, that was made with the key players. Okay, people have been around each other for a very, very long time. Okay, been around each other. People have been around each other since 2016, 2015. Okay, those people since 2015. That's 10 years. It's 10 years. Okay, and then they just started a relationship. Okay, what? In the last 4 or 5 years? Okay, so you can't think that those people don't know each other. Those people know each other very, very well. And there was communication. Okay, from an entity to Congress. So Congress did have some awareness. It's just that your agreement wasn't part of it. Okay, making them become a performer. That part wasn't there. Okay, that wasn't a part of the agreement. Why? Because it's a dangerous environment. Why would you have someone it's like, why would you have someone, in an agreement, okay, that's dangerous, okay? You don't agree to endanger someone. No, they weren't expected to be the performer in the contract. You need to find out. They probably weren't even supposed to be speaking. So now you created a liability for them to speak. Okay, they're not even speaking about the whatever the work entity that they're from. You have them speaking on subjects that they're not even supposed to know about. Okay? And so I'm not going to say that that's humanly cruel. Okay? That just might not be, you have to know that wasn't that contract agreement. Okay, you're trying to change somebody else's contract. That wasn't our contract agreement. If you gave somebody a lie detector test, okay, I would have to say that was not my agreement for them to speak at all. Can't have someone speaking who doesn't have a civil right in the matter, doesn't really have an opinion on the matter. Okay, you can't ask someone, certain questions. And then sometimes when you do try to talk to them about certain things, there was a time where, people don't feel comfortable talking about certain topics. Okay, so why would you have them speaking, and around all these people with a different jurisdiction where, you just created a liability? So do you have liability insurance? Because people don't care. People don't want somebody telling them all the time that all they can give them is medicine. Okay? Because that's all that the police department gives is medicine. You don't need to give somebody medicine all the time. That's not an option. And then you shouldn't even have thought that you were rich enough to even to be able to pay a liability claim like that. Why? Because he's already rich. Those two people together are already rich. They don't need nothing from anybody else. You didn't even need to create fraud. You should have just told him. You should have just said nothing. You didn't even need to say nothing. You didn't need to do nothing. People already have their agreement set up the way that they're going to have their agreement set up because it's their partnership. Okay, Mexico, all those international immigrants, you have a long way to go. Long way to go. Because rule number 1 is you're supposed to know that you're not even human. You're still an immigrant. Okay? You keep walking onto American soil and we keep trying to tell you that you're only an immigrant. And you keep speaking and we keep telling you that our employees in the government do not speak. Okay? So there should be no government employees in anybody in the Federation's home or anybody's home really. You're not allowed to speak. How can you be in somebody's home if you're not allowed to speak? So all that stuff has to come back and go away. There's no reason for you to think that you have a civil liberty, a right, a justice to change anything, to do anything. You don't qualify. You don't qualify because you're not even allowed to speak. Okay? And if you want to have a reverence for yourself, learn, and you want to be majestic, learn how to do your duties better. Okay? In the United States of America, we tell people, you keep training yourself every 2 years. I know it seems like people are training all over the place. But guess what? Sometimes that's what you got to do to get a job. Sometimes you got to train all over the place. You got to keep trying to work to show that you are trying to become the best, and to show that you think that you can be the best at anything that you can do, but you deserve to have the most pay, the highest pay. Okay, leaders have to be trained to have more skills. You don't just walk up into somebody's place and cut your hair and say, oh, I can play basketball. I know that you think that because the person is rich, but it's not your money. Are we being followed? I think we are. Okay. So everybody just has to learn now, okay, that you might not be going the right way. But you're not ready to create any new doors for yourself. You're not ready for any new opportunities. You still have a long way to go. A long way to go. I already dropped off. You still have a long way to go. Because first, you have to have a civil right for the law. You gotta have respect for the law. Okay? And that's why sometimes people, agree to help each other, or sometimes people agree to respond and to agree to be friends with people. It's because we weren't never supposed to have a jurisdiction that was illegal anyways. In the Bible, it says to let no one live deceived. Okay? And the men that he was with was supposed to say, you know what? That's a fun person. That's a nice lady. I hope you have a good time. Okay? And I wish you both the best. Because guess what? When the agreement was made, guess what happened? The other person got married. There was somebody else that got married and had kids. Okay, so one entity wanted to save his job, and the other one went and got married. Okay, that was an agreement between citizens. That wasn't an agreement between the United States of America's government and the citizen. No, nobody's trying to hold someone hostage, okay, under the government's law. No. Okay, that was citizens working together, because that's the law here in the United States of America. Mexico has a long ways to go. The French socialist governor, Greg Abbott, he doesn't even need to worry about anybody's human and civil rights. What he needs to make sure is that it's under the civil rights of law, where there's a peace and a justice there. Okay, because no one likes having to get out of their bed every single night because someone is not in their right house, or because someone is not in their right mind, or because there's a basketball player who's a black Mexican with short hair, looking to get high from somebody else's house. That is a violation of assault. Okay, you looking to get high or to buy drugs or to, endanger, someone else's spouse. Okay, or partner. Whatever it is that people want to do. People want to have a civil union ceremony, whatever. That's between them. Doesn't matter if a person is young or old. Why? Because the age, you know what I'm saying? Because that person has a civil liberty where they might actually need to have a friend, or to have someone that is older, that has a little bit more life experience, who can deal with the challenges, who can deal with the punches, who can deal with being hit and get back up. You don't know how to get back up. You're still learning, and you're mad about that. Because I have little bumblebees that want to keep my environment from contamination and disease. I want you to inspire the earth to want to help you, to rise up to help you and say, I want you to be somebody. I want you to be somebody special. I want you to lead me. I want you to be responsible for me to have my food. Why? Because that's what they say to me. Have a good day.